What's up, y'all? It's Pokey Professor Will here, and today we're going to do a video about Intuition liners. I've been skating Intuition liners for over a year now, and they're the only liners that I plan to skate from here on out. But we'll talk about why they're so great, why everybody loves them, how I felt about them at first, how I feel about them now, and we'll also compare the three Intuition liners I have right in front of me, which are the Wizard Intuition liners, the Intuition Premium liners, and the FR Intuition liners. So the two main reasons that these liners are very popular and regarded by very many people as the best liners in the industry in inline skating is number one, they're very thin, right? So if we compare a stock liner, the cuff, it's probably, it's a little less than an inch thick, but it's roughly an inch thick, right? If I compare the Intuition Premium, it is about half an inch thick. Right? So the liner itself is thinner than your most stock liners, right? And that allows you to fit into a smaller shell, right? Since the liner is thin, it takes up less volume inside the shell, which leaves it more volume for your foot, right? So you're able to scrunch down into a smaller shell than normal for most people. Here is my FR1s with some Intuition Premiums installed in them. I am skating Intuition Premium 26 to 26.5 Mondo point. These are 26.5 to 27 Mondo point, and these are also 26.5 to 27 Mondo point. But the Premiums are 26 to 26.5. These all fit me very well. My foot is 268 millimeters, and my other foot is 269 millimeters. They're about the same size. So I am inside the shell number 7, which has a 270 millimeter internal insole length. I wouldn't be able to fit into this shell with the regular FR stock liner. I've tried, and it's unbearable. I just simply don't fit in them. So the Premiums, they're thin enough. The Intuitions, they're thin enough to allow me to fit into a smaller shell. Right? So that's number one, the thinness of the liner itself. The second reason is the foam that the liners are made out of. So we'll call it the Intuition foam. But the material that they're made out of, it's a special type of foam by Intuition, and it does not compress nearly as much as a standard liner. If we look at the regular FR liner, the material that this is made out of, stuffed with, is pretty compressible. I can compress it to more than half of its volume, right? Or less than half of its volume, I guess. With the Intuition foam, it compresses a little bit, but it doesn't compress nearly as much as the material in the stock FR liners. So since this foam is so dense and not very compressible, it allows for great energy transfer between from your foot down to the wheels of your skate, right? Because it doesn't compress as much whenever you are pushing in your stride as a stock liner, right? Another thing being said is that this material is not going to pack out over time like a stock liner. So like the stock liner has a really thick cuff. This will pack out quite a bit over time. And for a lot of people, that means that the skate will be loose after that. With the Intuitions, they are going to break in a little bit, and they're going to pack just a tiny bit, but not nearly as much as your stock liner, right? So in the end, your skates shouldn't feel sloppy after a break-in with the Intuition liners, assuming that you're in the correct shell and liner size, right? So those are the two main reasons, right? The thinness of the material and also the density of the foam. Just the material that the foam is made out of is really, really good, okay? How did I feel about these liners at first? Well, the first pair that I tried was the Intuition Premiums, and I did skate in an oversized shell originally with the Intuition Premiums. I'm now in the proper size shell and the proper sized Intuitions. But I bought them because, everybody like on Discord, Instagram, YouTube, you know, make a big deal about the Intuition liners, and I wanted to try them to see if it was something that I would like, or what the hype was all about, right? So I bought a pair of Intuition Premiums. They were oversized in an oversized shell. But anyways, I rode them, and my original impression was that they were not as comfy as the FR liners. The FR liners, since this padding is squishy and thick, these are very, very comfortable. I mean, it feels like your feet are in a cloud, right? Whereas these, the foam is just more dense and not as compressible, and they're not as comfy at first, I don't think. So I was kind of worried that I had wasted $220 buying the Intuitions and that I didn't like them. But after they broke in, I could tell that with every push in my skates, there was just more energy getting to the ground. I was going faster. I felt that my skill level increased, you know, by how many ever points you want to say. But it definitely was noticeable to me. And so after that, I thought, man, I think that's because of the liners, right? So I've stuck with them since then. I went through a whole process of downsizing my shells and liners. That's a whole nother topic. But these are the only liners that I plan to skate from here on out. They're just that good, right? I can go for hours and hours in these and not feel like my foot is being crushed or that it's uncomfortable, right? What I'm saying is that I feel like they're comfortable now. I just had to get used to them, I guess. They're not as plushy and soft as the stock liners are. So I've skated the Wizard Intuition liners 4 times, 3 times in the Axe and 1 time in the UFRs. I've skated these hundreds of times because I have several shells with the premium liners in them. And I've skated these probably about 20 to 30 times inside my FR UFR shells. The only problem that I've ever had with any of these liners is on the premium. One pair of my premiums from the skating rink setup, the back fabric started to rip. So I could peel that fabric back. The foam was still intact, but the fabric started to peel. First of all, I had over 300 hours in those liners, so they lasted quite a long time. Also, at the time, I was putting my foot into the boot wet and not unlacing the laces enough. I think that accelerated the wear in the back of the skate. So at the skate plex, the skating rink, I usually skate for like an hour and a half, and then I'll go take like a 20-minute break, and then I'll come back and get back into my skates and skate for another hour and a half or so. Back then, I wasn't unlacing the liner a lot, and I wasn't unlacing the shells to make it looser for me to fit in and out of. Also, I wasn't changing my socks in between those 2 sessions. So now I only get into them with dry socks rather than with wet socks, and I also unlace the liner and shell so that it makes it easier to slip in and out. I'm hoping that will solve that issue. So I don't know if anybody else has had that problem. I'd love to know in the comments. So they are naturally thermally insulating. The foam the Intuition uses is a thermal insulator, so my feet tend to sweat in these quite a bit, which means that I have to dry them out after I'm done with a session. I use these chili soles. If you're familiar with boot bananas, these are basically the same as boot bananas. They're just bigger and they last longer, and they fit like the entire shape of the liner pretty well. But Boot bananas, chili soles will help dry your liners out. Also, probably the best option is a boot dryer, which is something that I need to invest in. So let us compare the Wizard Intuitions with the Premium Intuitions and the FR Intuitions. Now, there are other Intuition models. There's like the V2, there's the K2 Grid Intuitions, there's the FR Neo Intuitions, the VIM 909 Intuitions. There's an older style of FR Intuitions, and there's more than that, I'm sure. But I'm only familiar with these three, the Wizard, the Premium, and the FR Intuition. But if we compare the thickness of the three, the thickness of the foam, one of them is thinner than the other two. So the Wizard liner, the foam here is a bit thinner than the FR or the Intuition Premium. You can see that the Intuition Wizard is probably almost half, maybe like 60% of the thickness of the UFR Intuition. But the thinnest one is definitely the Wizard liner, which means that you can pack into an even smaller shell, right? Depending on your foot size and the shell that you're trying to get into. In fact, on the tongue, it says that this one has a low volume, so the amount of foam here is a low amount of volume, whereas on these two, the volume is listed as medium. So the Wizards are definitely the thinnest out of the three. If we look at the tongue, the UFR has the smallest tongue out of the three. Right? So if we compare like the Intuition Premium with the UFR, you can see that the UFR is quite a bit thinner. The UFR tongue is the most flexible out of the three. It's the thinnest out of the three. It's also, I think, the most comfortable out of the three, right? My favorite tongues are these two, though. And I think that these two tongues are identical except for the colors, right? I may be wrong on that, but they are basically the same thickness. They look the same thickness. And with the Intuition Premiums, there's a piece of plastic that lines the outside of the tongue. And I am pretty sure the same piece of plastic sits here in the Wizard tongue. I can confirm that there's plastic in these because I've rubbed the fabric down enough to be able to see, and it looks like a wrist guard or a shin guard or something, kind of plastic. I haven't rubbed these down enough to confirm the plastic, but the tongues on these basically feel the same. I really like the reinforced and thick tongue that the Wizard liner and the Premium liner have. That's a really big bonus, right? If we look at the cuff, right, this is the Premium, right? The Premium is the only one that has a removable portion of the cuff area. So if you remove this little extra portion, the Premium liner becomes about the same thinness as the Wizard liner. However, it's more flexible without that reinforced Velcro pad than the Wizard's cuff, right? When you have this Velcro pad on, the cuff is pretty stiff, right? So if you're having trouble fitting into a skate with the cuff on, you can take the cuff off and see if you fit any better. Or just adjust the amount of cuff flex, whatever you want to do there, right? But on the UFR and the Wizard, they have a reinforced cuff area. You can see it's the same shape as the cuff Velcro part on the Premium, except it's stitched into the fabric, right? So for the UFR, I mean, it's pretty flexible. I think, again, the UFR has the softest cuff, just the softest foam in general, right, out of the three. The Wizard, it also has that reinforced area. It's not reinforced with plastic, I don't think, like the tongue is. But it's quite a bit stiffer. Yeah, it's a bit stiffer. I wouldn't say quite a bit, but it's a bit stiffer than the UFR, right? So For the laces, the Wizard only has one eyelet. This is the Wizard base liner. There's a Wizard base high, which is an inch higher, and it has 2 eyelets. But because this one only has one eyelet, it kind of is awkward inside the FRs, like the UFRs and the FR1s, because the last eyelet of the shell is right here, and you have to lace that part all the way up to here. It just kind of looks funny. I don't know, it didn't feel funny, I guess, but it looked funny to me. That's my least favorite. I wish this one had more eyelet holes, just to accommodate more boots rather than just like the Wizard base boot. This one has the most holes, the most eyelets. So this one has 4 eyelets, which means that I can lace this liner up separately from my shell, which is a huge bonus with the premium. That's my favorite. The more eyelets, the better, right? I think. So, for the UFRs, they have 2 eyelets, which works perfectly for the FR shells if you're going to use the same pair of laces to lace in the liner and the shell, right? But as far as laces go, you know, this one wins. This one, it comes with laces, but I took them out because I'm going to replace them with the Derby Core wax laces is what I use. The 45-inch fit perfectly for the premium, by the way. The cost of these, they are expensive, right? They're relatively expensive. I bought these two by themselves, each for $220. And I bought this one with a pair of UFR shells for $300. So I got the UFR shells, the sole plates, and the liner for $300, which I think is a pretty good deal. So, you know, you can buy them separately. You can also find skates that already have intuitions installed and get kind of a better deal by bundling it up with a shell and frames and wheels and all that stuff. They are expensive, but I think in this case you get what you pay for. They're phenomenal liners, and they have increased my skating level by quite a bit because of the power transfer that I'm able to impart to the wheels, and also the ability to downsize my shell, which makes me more agile, and that also in itself helps with power transfer. Unfortunately, last time I checked on the Intuition website, these premium liners had gone up to $269. So I'm used to buying these for $220. I don't know if it's because of tariffs or because of some other reason, but it looks like the price of these Intuitions may be going up, which is unfortunate, right? So one more thing to mention is that on the Intuition Premiums, they have these little rubber beads embedded into the foam, like right here, right there, and on the bottom, and this helps the liner stay in place inside your shell and not slip around. I mean, if your foot is filling up the liner and the liner's filling up the shell, as in you're in the proper size skates, you shouldn't have that issue, right? But the other two don't have those rubber beads to help you keep the liner in place. All right, so I think that's it for this video. If you guys have any questions or comments for me, I would love to hear them. But other than that, you guys have a good one, and we will see you next time. Peace.